2003 was a year where Andy Houston proved himself in the sport and proved that he belonged in the sport, and now looks to win more races and to become a more certified championship contender. Maybe not all the way there, but championship contender in 2004. So, first things first, this is a huge year for silly season stuff, as two big legends of the sport are retiring at the end of 2004, and those would be Bill Elliott and Terry Labonte. They are both going to retire. We head to Daytona for Speed Weeks, and Tony Stewart wins the Budweiser Shootout. Jeff Gordon gets his third Daytona 500. After Speed Weeks, Rockingham comes around, and Matt Kenseth wins Rockingham, and then his Roush teammates Mark Martin and Kurt Busch win at Las Vegas and Atlanta respectively. Huge deal. Underdog Elliott Sadler wins at Darlington in race 5 of the season. Kevin Harvick wins at Bristol. Jeff Gordon is the first driver to get his second win of the year at Texas, and then Kurt Busch follows through, but then also gets his third win at Talladega. Jimmie Johnson wins at California for the second year in a row, and then Matt Kenseth wins the Richmond night race for his second win on the season. So the points after Richmond are Elliott Sadler is leading the points with his one win over Jeff Gordon, who is only 7 points behind him. Then Jimmie Johnson in third. Jamie McMurray has had a very consistent beginning part of the year, getting 8 top 10s in 11 races. Kurt Busch with his 3 wins is 5th. Then Matt Kenseth, and Andy Houston is 7th in points. He has 7 top 10s. He's really coming around. He just needs to get a win. Ryan Newman's 8th, Mark Martin 9th, and then Tony Stewart 10th. As we head to the All-Star race, we run the Open, and Bobby Labonte wins it. He actually lost the first segment in a photo finish to Jeremy Mayfield, I think, and then won the second segment in a photo finish over somebody else, I forgot who. And then Jamie McMurray comes in and wins the All-Star race. This All-Star win actually kicks off a pretty good run throughout the summer stretch and into the final 10 races. He wins at Charlotte, and then he goes back-to-back with Dover. He wins the Brickyard, and then he wins the California night race for his 4th win of the year. Jeff Gordon continues his Pocono dominance, winning at the June Pocono race. Kurt Busch wins at Michigan. Really interesting finish. Tony Stewart was going to win that race, and then he ran out of fuel on the final corner of the final lap of the race, and then Kurt Busch passed him down the straightaway to win at Michigan. But then Tony Stewart came back next week at Sonoma and won the race. Ryan Newman wins the Pepsi 400 at Daytona. And Jimmie Johnson wins at Chicagoland for his second win of the year. And then Matt Kenseth wins Loudon. Now, the July Pocono race. Bill Elliott comes through and wins in this final race at Pocono. It's an incredible story. You know, Gordon's won like 6 in a row, 5 in a row at Pocono. And Bill Elliott comes in here and just takes it away from him in the closing laps of the race and wins the race at Pocono. Mark Martin actually wins at Watkins Glen. And then Tony Stewart gets redemption for what happened at Michigan and then wins in the August Michigan race, and then follows it up with a win at Bristol the next week. In the second Richmond night race, Tony Stewart wins. He gets his third win in 4 races and his 4th win on the season. Now you may be thinking, oh, here he comes, he's going to tell us the chase grid. Wrong. There is no chase in this universe because Matt Kenseth didn't have such a weird season, quote unquote. He won 7 races and won the championship in 2003. So that's not really too terribly surprising. So there is no chase. So we just continue through the season. The points after Richmond are Jamie McMurray with his 4 wins, leading Jeff Gordon by 90 points. Then Jimmie Johnson is 3rd, Kurt Busch 4th, Tony Stewart 5th, after getting his 3 wins. Ryan Newman with his lone win is 6th, Matt Kenseth 7th, Elliott Sadler still hanging on tough in 8th, Mark Martin 9th, and Bobby Labonte is 10th. Andy Houston's 11th, so he would have barely missed out on the chase had it been real. Andy Houston's just having a good season. He has 4 top 5s and 10 top 10s and 3 poles, so he'll be in the shootout next year. Jeff Gordon wins at New Hampshire, which closes up the points gap a little bit more on Jamie McMurray. He goes from 90 points back to 60 points back. And then he backs it up with a win at Dover. He closes it up a marginal amount since McMurray struggled, but Gordon has only now 13 points back. Then Bill Elliott wins at Talladega in the second Talladega race to get his second win on the season. And then Gordon wins at Kansas, so that brings the gap back down to 28 points back. Kurt Busch wins the Charlotte night race. Gordon finishes really well, but McMurray finishes back of the top 10, I think like 9th or 10th. So the points gap goes from 28 to 2 points back. Jeff Gordon is just 2 points back from taking the points lead. Rusty Wallace wins at Martinsville, and this is the race with the Hendrick plane crash, so obviously he doesn't. No one celebrates out of respect, but Gordon does take the points lead in this race. He is now 61 points ahead of McMurray. But now, as we go to Atlanta, in his final season, looking for his first win at this racetrack in his career, Terry Labonte wins Atlanta in an emotional victory. Then Rusty goes on to win Texas and Phoenix right at the end of the season, and then Dale Jr. gets his one win at Homestead. Well, what about the points? Well, through those races, Gordon continues to just build a points lead. Jimmy Johnson passes McMurray in points, and Gordon wins the championship in 2004 by 122 points over Jimmy Johnson. And then McMurray finishes third in points, 204 points back. Kurt Busch is fourth, Tony Stewart fifth, Ryan Newman sixth. Bobby Labonte, winless, gets seventh in points. Mark Martin, eighth. Matt Kenseth finishes ninth. Robert Yates' teammates Elliott Sadler and Dale Jarrett finished 10th and 11th in points. Junior gets 12th, and Andy Houston, even though it was a winless season and disappointing in that regards, Andy Houston still finishes 13th in points with 5 top 5s and 13 top 10s and 6 poles. Andy Houston looks to win and continue proving himself in this series and maybe break through and contend for a championship in 2005.